야다 그래서 대외의 연배 쳐져서 조르 줄배 엔들다 추쇼 참을이야 아니야 섬지요
First of all, my greetings to everybody.
今天我要向台湾请法团为主所有一切听法的信众问好，你们大家好。
当然了，这样子西头尼不就送啊？
So first, the Chinese should say the Heart Sutra. Recite the in the concentration on the categories of phenomenon called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the various he held
这些东西没，慢慢。
Ah
다시는 시루님 그 나직다. 엔제네 더 오는데. 조 있는다. 숨제된 게 촌주 대양 땡중 라왕권은 넘버 제베 찬에 다 대찬 제베 루루 쓰시 디마 둥기.
So I will recite the mantra of Heart Sutra and also the praise of or the verse of salutation of the Mula Madhyamaka Karika by Nagarjuna, which is a praise to the Buddha by remembering the Buddha's deed of teaching the disciples.
Tisum Jave Yung Lo Cha Chen Lo Dea Dang Gade Gade Parang Gade Para Samgade Buddhi So Dea Dang Gade Parang Gade Para Samgade Buddhi So Dea Dang Gade Parang Gade Para Samgade Buddhi So Nyande Shiva Zono Kunshi Nyi Nishi Tense Ganyen Dang Dwala Tamba Jena Lam Shi Nyi Shi Den Den Dun Zaba So
first is on reciting the salutation verse from Abhisamaya Alamkara, and then the salutation from Mula Madhyamaka Karika of Arya Nagarjuna, which says, I prostrated the perfect Buddha, the best of teachers, who taught that whatever is dependently arisen is unceasing, unborn, not annihilated, and impermanent, not coming, not going, without distinction, without identity, and free from conceptual construction.
야, 다들이 조인이 결이 쳐서 소리야. 다 전지시야래. 엔다 엔다 남유한테 이 최세도 전에 내가 낭추 뭐지제. 엔디네 지된 양술렘 배추 다 샤바스니 대세로 니치유 다 들이대한다 셰제 슝디 자시로 그 랍시 숨제 애니 젊으시게 땡지 때 봤지 디니부디 낭추 모르셔야 되지 되네 조직이 람드는지 애니 젊으시게 람드 두든지 디니부디 지전 양술 내면수 샤도신다.
So today, the main disciples for these teachings are the Chinese devotees, the Chinese brothers and sisters. So usually what I do is when I give teachings, I first give an introduction to the Dharma, the Buddhism, and then after that give the teachings on how to apply this teaching in practice. So I make these two distinctions, two categories, divide my teaching into these two categories. So with regard to the introduction part of Buddhism, I will teach the 3 chapters from Master Nagarjuna's fundamental stanzas on the middle way, called Wisdom, and then Lama Tsongkhapa's the Praise of Dependent Origination, and then with regard to the how to practice the Dharma, I'll teach the Atisha's text, the path to length of the path, and then Tsongkhapa's concise lamrim.
On sour shots. And that Tosungi 말하죠 심 투대야 지기야래. 말하죠 심 투대바도 수요 말이지. 이내 심 라면 앞에 투댕에디 투승체. 다저 차단이 어디 차인 거야래. 차단이 되게 싸워대 디무인 거래. 자 근데 인도 말하죠 대원 되고야래. 다 심주 심주에 탈이야. 아니 룡하게 지 샹을 넣어봐야 되죠. 독순고 왕의 용기가 인도산에 독순유모 싸워셔 사대인 말이 다 독순유모 세단디 독순세야디 7월 이렇게 좀 말이 말한지 시준 디나를 여대버리 자상가 시주 디나를 독순 용대야디 싸워싸워디 띠무스니 미시베 왕의 중인 말이 근데 인도산에 독순세야 그 탑시디 아니 싫어 나와 바르쇼스니 진입에 된다. 지대에 된 지신도 시에 시럽기 어나 개윤도 전에 아니 독송그 멤버들이 세야인 말이. 근데 윤지 싫어 나와 봐셔스. 봐. 다 대대비 냠린 제윤도 전에 지 치단난 게 개인 디디 다 마용쇼스 다들 말하면 하지. 마용쇼스. 다 디슈구데 시르고 나온 바외관에 도순기 녀몽파 세네 제 자점의 고방 토바 삼기 애체도 미고 마인바 타예베 심지어 타다 남기 개사라 거야기 단 너는 타예베 심지어 타다의 유기 녀몽 도순 세야지다 시르고 나온 바야지기 된대지기 쳐도자와 현든도로 장인도 전에 정주선바 개세 정주 선바세야 디기 로디 장용기야래 로디 장백관에 랑기 르nga 이숨 대니 조심전의 명네 현든 코네 주야가 체도 그게 다 로장야지라 개세 줄 주고쇼 사드 송인 바리 말한데 하고 싶으시도 와
So as the Chinese have this prayer, which they said earlier after the Heart Sutra, the first line says that may the three poisons be dispelled. So what happens with us is we are disturbed by these three poisons. Although nobody really wants to be disturbed, it happens to us. So why do we have disturbance of mind? Is because of the three poisons, and within the three poisons there are those of the attachment and anger, and they are rooted, which are rooted in turn in that of ignorance. And so all of us, of course, want happiness, but because of our disturbed mind, what happens is we also exhibit this through our voice and body, and therefore they are we cause ourselves harm through the body and our speech, and so. Therefore, what we need to do is to overcome these three poisons. And so you make this prayer saying, may the three poisons be overcome. The destructive emotions be overcome, and the three poisons. Out of the three poisons, in order to overcome it, what we need to do is that of overcoming the root of the three poisons, which is that of ignorance. And so, by overcoming the ignorance, how you overcome ignorance is by developing the wisdom. Which sees suchness, which sees things as they are. And so when the light of wisdom shines in us, then the ignorance and the three poisons are overcome. And therefore, through that, what happens is, now with regards to developing these three, the wisdom, the light of wisdom, you do not do it only in order to and also you make prayer that may all the obstacles, inner and outer obstacles, be overcome or go away. And so through this wisdom, the light of wisdom, the inner and outer obstacles should go away. And you are not, but when you make this prayer, you're not only dedicating it in order that you may become an arahat, someone who has overcome all destructive emotions, but you are actually for yourself alone, but you are actually praying by saying the last word, which says, may I engage in the bodhisattva practices. You are actually dedicating your practice of having developed the wisdom and overcoming the obstacles in order that you may be able to engage in the bodhisattva practices with this big heart to work for the benefit of all sentient beings. And therefore, your light of wisdom is dedicated for engaging in the bodhisattva practices. And so it's really amazing prayer.
在第四句的时候，就是发愿，希望我们都可以这样，把自己的身与意所做的一切，完完全全都是为了众生。那这个寄颂，非常的棒。
这样子他的去学哪里啊？听个用没用啊？就是啥个这样，那我讲的。
Is on how many of you here for the first time that you have not come before? Raise your hands.
好，哎呀。他的听啊的用的就这的呀，啊的俺们给下的的拍是大教授的，觉得样用个人，这种哎没些的去年呀些的差距中年别说的些差距退呢，但历史还是马儿哇过，个样样退不赢呢，本来个人就能就送军里啊，本来就别是的觉得。 다 낭드르지고 슝드즈 차디 신신데 요르디 이니 양자로이나 살굴로이나 고하면저 구용그리스니 근데 숭균 요래 자디리 인도 장스데 태간에 권용즈다 소소 야오지 상무 야오시 당지 셰베이나 배지 답조제제 마녀야게 로여 시험 마녀야 녀보다 먼저 싱글어 엔 사바 졸라다 장스다 사바리 앵에만 되셔다 사바지 고용구리 독신다
So, for those of you who have been to my teaching before, what I will be talking may be just a repetition for you. But basically, you have to know that, as we have a saying, that if you listen to, even if you have heard some teachings one time, you should not just be satisfied having heard a teaching just one time, but there's a saying that, if you listen to a teaching, especially Dharma teaching, the teaching for internal transformation, which is called inner science. It is said that if you have heard a teaching, of course you may understand something, but then it is good always to read the text over and over again. As it is said that if you read a text 9 times, you will gain 9 different insights from those readings. And therefore, I hope that what I'm going to say will not bore you, those who have already heard my teaching. And for those of you who are new, it will be something new. So this is a blessing for tea.
잠주 그래. 잠주도 그래. 남지 자가는 8시래. 네.
No. Did you hear what I?
Until the Vietnamese group, Jamare.
Where is the Vietnamese group today?
Vietnamese.
Where is the Vietnamese group?
Vietnamese.
Big jam.
Vietnamese. Oh. Good. The translator, Vietnamese translator,
Where is the Vietnamese translator?
Yeah. Okay. The Korean.
So Korean translator. Korean.
Okay. That's it. Some Japanese.
There's some Japanese.
Few Japanese, I think. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That telling on today, 去年写呗，就没有开始了呗呢。啊，这特别啊，这是的个读书人物少写少个，嘛特别老能写的，是的，是牛毛帮呗，在那特度的，台湾原的，就让先给距离呀，结巴了呀，可。人家要看的看都这个起码的，现在印度西人们哪里呀？嘎的，巴拉嘎的，巴拉三个的，不对说哈，现在送的话，他的说起他们吧，读书的向往的就等于这个，呢，没那么就对不起，呢，他们他的呀，呢，商家设计样样买不来。좀 더人家查呢，长命送就超上呢，那lamrim的rim的这呢，他的那我把做商家送给他的，然后呢，老lam西切，那这边lam几钱呢？看到草lam、椒lam、汤lam、干lam是钱呢，老边lam西的，我都当呢，那没了呗，这部的我都去要的。다 인도 시르니 분할이야 가데 초전이체 가데 빠른 것들 때문에 통람듯이 빠라 쌈 것들 때문에 공람듯이 부디서 해야 되긴 드뷰사 저주도 시속사 다 되면这让我说落人民国呀空都着国的话但是其가서 우리 교진기 땡지기 로나 차샤베네 사변지 때문에 그 림베전에 그 제부야 살고 그래마도 뒤질 용말 봐 되는 신 난기 군제세야 거에 교의 겐 냐라 가서 그게 줍제 아니 교의 겐기 튕진기 다 튕진원에 개진디디 진유로 당네 도세네 아니 교권의 kon도 빼고야지 이 말이 자, 근데 이르서네 로짐기 장야사디 뭐니스 차되게 하래.
在这里听闻佛法，我们的目的是什么呢？就是我们之前所提到面消三障。
What is the purpose of gathering here, our gathering here for this religious discourse, for this Dharma teaching and listening? As the prayer that you have said, the Chinese, which says, may the three destructive emotions of the three poisons be dispelled and so forth. what we have to know is that in order to attain the total freedom from all the destructive emotions, in other words, overcoming all the destructive emotions and finally reaching the final goal, we need to progress through the path gradually. And therefore, as it says in the Heart Sutra, gate gate parasam gate bodhiswaha. What we need to understand is that starting with this from now, from this ordinary state that we are in, we have to make progress on the path in order to and reach that of the highest goal of cessation, the liberation, total liberation from the destructive emotions. This cannot come only by making prayers. You cannot become liberated only by making prayers. Even in the case of the Buddha Shakyamuni himself, he proceeded along the path to the final goal of liberation. And so in the process of training on the path to enlightenment, what he went through are those of the paths of accumulation and path of preparation, which are the path of ordinary beings, and then the path of seeing and path of meditation, which are the transcendental paths of the Arya beings, and then finally became or attained that of the path of no more learning, which is that state of Buddhahood. And so in the context of the Gate Gate mantra, the first Gate and the second Gate respectively refers to the path of accumulation and path of preparation, and then the Paragate refers to the path of seeing, and then Parasamgate to the path of meditation. And so by having gone through these paths, what you reach finally at is that of the Bodhi. Swaha, Bodhiswaha means made the foundation of the enlightenment be planted, and so you reach that of the final goal of enlightenment, Bodhi, or awakening of Buddhahood. So even in the case of the external world, when you sow a seed, you cannot. The result comes gradually and not immediately.
Also, shirabrisha. Kareslamna shirabsadigi, nishin tingyari. Gyunzen samda, chabachani, kazegi chabachaba, deitsugi, any nebanyaji. Chik turn, chik sabaji sheada, sabashibe tendrel, nebanya, izinyaji, yunguduga. So, shirabrisha. 나 싫어되게 좋아지니 애니 지 나를 못통 통 나를 마시고 시인도 자네 디 편윤다 디니 거버 디 시인도 자네 텔 ton얘기 듬벌리기도 와 싸워다 듬베지기 tel라 냐라베나 치모 ton얘기 듬바 치모몬도 ton얘기 듬바 직세 되네 탈바 ton얘기 듬바 직세 되네 탐제 김에 고만 되니 누버 직세 누버면라 숨도가 단 누버디리 바다 서도 자첩 봐. 누버디 영야디 싫어 좋아지네. 지 치마 문틀류된 토비하기 개진 가리임바 튠진 가리임바 디디 시베체베 디디 시베 싫어게 좋아체 문틀 연대 통에 문도 연대다 시베 양 싫어고 좋아지네 문도 되니 누벌리기도 와 다가는 신기 시베 님이 통 아니 시베 자와 묘몽 세아디 아니 그게 녀부동된 예배 차네 아니 묘몽 최퇴야 이마 묘몽 빵퇴야 이마 묘몽 빵배 최외 연대디 원래라 지금 그게 땡도 대화 임버지 싫어고 좋아지네 다 하고도요 묘몽 뽕터 위에 있어야 돼. 다 자자데 묘몽스야 돼. 진실로 이민 디상당고요. 다 싫어고 상당도 줄에 마도 듬베 소퇴야 말이. 자들이 인도다 묘몽방배 차와지 여시바 rang gyuding la chawa tindrishin drup siba chigi sherab ki chawachana tongyin dhuzane tarba tuyanyikin dumbati likitoga. 다 대신도 난게 태도가 심지어 탐지기 규기 아다 뉴모바다 시제집에 집어디에 니부dom된 여봐. 아다 집어디 제루이 봐. 되는데 집어 빵배 에네 타고 인된 인 창주 세대하게 창주 첨보 세대하게 타고 인된 인 터도 돼. 지 시절은 조롱이 봐. 시절이 유시 봐. 랑기 규定랑신 당연히 랑기 규定용시비 통하이나 규집에 심전시에 있는 용시비 통하는 거 봐. 다 대대로 로시티베이나 팬유 컨트리야 봐. 그다음에 거바 컨트리야 봐. 디디 시르고 초아치는 통인도 자네. 아니 라미 조정 고만 던드니 듬버디 레용도 와. 서디리인도 조조 시르고 초아치는 용기야리. 아니 하고도야 다 잘람네 소원지가 하고다 잘람네 야 소원지기 아니 잘람네 통놈을 펴야 통놈네 공놈을 펴야 아니 공놈네 미로를 펴야 생기디 냠샤 강도 되게 하래 제도 걸 두야 말해 그래서 제도 걸 듬베로지리 용도가 탑지 냠네들이 용기하러 와 냠샤 그돌 싫어 코나래 자상가 산에 싹 공을 펴는데 냠샤 코는 안에 펴대야 또 싫어 제용도 와 자 디네 인도산에 말하는 거는 안다 시진 이번에 시로님 사용코라 시르기 파르도 침바스네 특히 파르도 침바스 미시월 시르기 파르도 침바스네 송고도와 자 딘지 인도 시르도 남지기 시르도 시우지 개심 버려셔
So in the practice of the path to reach, first of all, I think I will just continue from the previous one. So even with regard to our mind, the transformation of mind, we have to create the conducive conditions and overcome those of the negative, the unconducive, unfavorable conditions, and thereby make progress through the path. So this is something which is a reality. And so with regard to that kind of practice, of overcoming those of the negativities and so forth, progressing on the path with the main practice or the main what is primary is that of the wisdom. So what happens with wisdom is you first of all learn something new and then go give your thoughts to it, reflect on, investigate, and then come to the conclusion and give gain that of the conviction in the point of practice. And so through with the help of this wisdom you gain certitude in whatever you are investigating on, and then through that certitude you will develop this aspiration or the to practice the path. And so within the practice of the path there are those of wishing to or aspiration for higher rebirth or liberation, and then there of the omniscient state of Buddhahood, which are progressively more profound and much more broader and extensive. And so with the help of wisdom, what you do is first of all learn about the different qualities of, or the good positive qualities of the higher rebirth, and you know about them, and then through that understanding, through that knowledge, then you gain this aspiration or develop the aspiration to actually engage in the paths that lead to the higher rebirths. And so in the case of these aspirations for higher rebirth or liberation and omniscience, these aspirations are helped by the wisdom mainly, and even with regard to seeing the samsaric, the shortcomings of samsara, and thereby wishing to go out of samsara or be free from samsara, you need the wisdom that helps it to gain that goal. And so you have to also see that through wisdom, what happens is you are able to see that the destructive emotions are something that you can actually overcome, that you can free yourself from. And there is the possibility to the possibility of freedom from these destructive emotions, and that the possibility to attain that of liberation is seen with the help of wisdom. And you also have to see that the destructive emotions are something which can be overcome by applying the antidote to them. And so with the application of the antidote that goes directly against these destructive emotions, you are able to overcome the destructive emotions themselves and attain the purity or the state of nirvana, or which has the two purities. And so to really see that these are possible, you need to use wisdom. Which sees that the possibility of overcoming these destructive emotions and the possibility of attaining that of nirvana. And once you see this possibility for yourself, then when you think about others, you extend the same logic to others being under the force of these the destructive emotions, and therefore it is possible that they also can reach that of nirvana, or that of the nirvana which is qualified by the two purities. Then you wish to have to attain that of the highest goal of enlightenment, of Buddhahood, for the sake of others. And so all these things are possible with the help of become possible only through the help of wisdom. And especially wisdom is very essential when you progress from through the path, for example, from the path of preparation to the path of seeing, and from the path of seeing to the path of the meditation. You actually go to the next level of the path only through the meditative equipoise, totally absorbing in emptiness. And therefore here also you see the importance, or the significance of wisdom, which is the main factor which leads one from the lower level to the higher level while being in meditative equipoise. Whereas the aspirations that you develop come only during the post-meditation sessions. And in the case of Heart Sutra, in the case of the perfection of wisdom teachings, they are called the perfection of wisdom. And so here this also the term wisdom here also shows the significance of it, the wisdom, in order to reach that perfect state of Buddhahood, or perfection of wisdom. And so in all these it is very important for us to understand. From all these, it is very what we get is that it's very important for us to develop this wisdom which sees the things as they are.
다원다 나란주 심뷰디 다들 너무 투순기 샤왕도 여대바 다티 교통 토야기 아니 난가로 쪼도 가렸을라나 아도 배지 시징 흉나래 배지 시징 그날이나 당에 식도 정부들이 가다 흉거기나 정부들이 가다 디자리 셈라 셈마치데 셈지랑신의 어사오 사치 어다 되기 셈라 셈마치데 사기 냐라 셈라 사디 디두사디 자와 셈투 모두탄의 연구여바 인도산에 디두 상회 직다 톡스럽고 셈티체 친내디 디두 영향이 깨는데 지야래 이내 쪼쪼데 생각하는 연구야래 그래서 디디 인도산에 셈라스 다 셈마치데사디 셈사 나란조 로리아 지금 컨디션도 없었나 류의 셈스럽도 지 전쟁원에 여버지 로를 샤용 것도 전쟁원에 주요 말이지 전쟁원에 모주신도 전쟁원에 주버를 낭신 현등한테 머리버리지 자상가 머리버리기 신유 셈 랑문의 주버디 타녀도야 말이지 자들이인도 셈도 셈 마치데스 셈 로로 나오는 신기 셈 정신직 요 말이지 자 셈로 나오는 로로 나오는 신기 셈 가서 우리 그게 대다도 주베 동댕에디 셈지 주님 말이 다셈 지도 나왔다도 가서 우리 그게 주변 진배 로디 진실로 머리고 살지 셈 지도 나오는 시 주변 동동댕에디 리고 이시 다 리고 이시스는도 가다 셈지 내로 통을로지 로 지구디 tangi yinlu la chijilodo togo lo yindu lokshi sim chidan nao na xin dambar zindenge go lo di chidan nao na xin zhumeba yinzang tedar zimbe lo di chijilogo lo che da sim chidan nao na xin zhuyo ma re sim renxin ji zhuyo dong tong denge lo di ki sim renxin ji zhuyo dong re la dong na xin tong denge lo di lo chama che da la gyab ting yoba che 근데 이번 인도산에 심기 견디 세트야레스. 그다 심 모티베다 간다지 견 치지로로 띠무고 왕의 중원디디 세트레스. 니네 심 정신이 왜사레스. 심라 묘무 독순구 참배 견그 직디디 심기 정신을 쉬고 말레스. 심 정신 왜사레스. 어디 숨겨래? 다 들이 인도산에 나한테 사물로 줄이야 감 대신 님부세한테 이해버려 자 줄라면 그돌이야 상계 최 긴든 아니 감 청주 연대 틀레스네 도진네 든세 송도가 아다 되게 아니 다 상계 최 긴두세한테 규접을자 규접 상계 최송 아니 긴든리아 아주 초스대 긴든 루루야서로 써고 드지더라 긴두 차요 걸어 봐 긴두 구조 저기 걸어 봐 대달이야 아주 금이 야다치네 대달이 제수 럼니 로버트 밀로베 투줄을 여대베 최군조 된지지 랑기 줄이야다 문도 쳐야지 띵문도 치 토야데 가르슬람나 감비어레스 감 대신이 뭐야레스 감 대신님부터 땡네 아니全国的你부터 중중레스全国的你부터 귤게니国定嘅차로베 토슈데 레베 그돌라 청주사들레스 그래서 대대비 청주 토바이나 아니 랑기 토바 연대 그제는 뭔구죠 정중문도 지하가 과바디 현든도 미고 인도산에 아니 칠레 현든 매매 흔주고 칠레 전에 어다 도승도 와 대와 디 구림되기 산지 좀 된데 로니도 다 족지스 공리야 춘디 청골걸 룽기 청골걸 룽기 청골걸니 아니 코로나들어서 왔다 림베 전에 아니 간다 지좀 된데기다 숨기 제수 럼네 투주로 똑배 연대 최군조 고랑고 최군조 문도 줄네 된데기다 로베 긴든 차 아니 대다기에 렉셔 먹고 쌈니 여대베다 안도 자시를 뒤체 직차되어 루룩 쌈셔베다 렉셔 차되어래 아다 대대비다 긴든 디디기다 디디기다 상게 최 긴든 대수부디기다 대수부터라 때네 나란주 규기 감티시니부디 청주를 교투야레스 자서 상계 최 긴든 감 청주 연대 칠레시 네 된수야데 구름든데 지금 숨고도 와 자와들이 인데 나란주 다다 동네기 상황도 열어디 동네도 세도 그래서 가라서는 동네 규디 친절로 로래 대라 견도 dom대 열어 근데 이번 인도산에 동력이 주 머리보다 세트야 임베 차네 동력의 저도 그래 스타디셔요.
'So if you ask these minds that we have now, which is under the power of or influence of the three poisons, how can these minds be transformed? So what is the reason to say that we can make transformation in this mind? In one of the Professional Wisdom Sutras, it is said by the Buddha that the mind does not abide, or mind is not in the mind itself, because the mind is, the nature of mind is clear light. So what this is saying is basically the suffering that we experience and the experiences of pain and pleasure that we undergo are all mainly come or are rooted or come about based on mainly that of our mind. And therefore, how does this mind appear to us is such that although when we think about the mind, what happens is the mind appears to us as if it has some kind of objective existence. It has some kind of independent existence from its own side, and this kind of appearance is there. Whereas the nature of mind is not that it is not. It does not exist the way it appears to us. So the way it appears to us, and then when the mind appears to us as if it has some independent existence, and then when we cling on to it, when we actually hold on to that view, then what that is that of the ignorance. And so, on the other hand, the mind being empty of that way of existence, the independent existence, is the suchness or the reality of the mind itself. And so, when the sutra says the mind is not within the mind itself, it is actually showing this emptiness of the mind, that it does not exist the way we actually cling onto it, as if it has some kind of independent existence. And so, when you hold on to the mind as if it has some kind of independent existence, you have that of the ignorance, and this ignorance is counteracted by the wisdom, which sees that this is not the way the mind exists, that the mind does not exist in its independently, and therefore the way of existence of the mind, that it does not exist the way it appears, has valid support from valid cognition, and therefore because the ignorance does not have that kind of valid support, and also all these different negative states of minds that that have the source in this ignorance do not have any support like that. Therefore, there is you can see that these ignorance and the different negative states of minds that are rooted in it are something which you can actually eliminate from your mind stream. And so, secondly, the mind itself, the three poisons. You have to understand that the three poisons do not abide intrinsically in the mind itself. In other words, the three poisons are not in the intrinsic nature of the mind, and therefore the nature of the mind is that it is empty of such an intrinsic nature, the inherent existence, and therefore what we get at is that of the the teaching on the Tathagata Garbha, the essence of Tathagata, which is in terms of that, the Mahayana Uttara Tantra by Maitreya gives teachings on deals with what are called the 7 Vajra points. So within the 7 Vajra point are those of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and then that of the Tathagata Garbha, and then that of the Enlightenment, and then the enlightened activities of the Buddhas. And so you have to see that the Buddhas, such as Shakyamuni Buddha, are for us a causal refuge in terms of a Buddha giving teaching to us, and then there are those of the causal refuge of the Sangha, such as Master Nagarjuna and the great Indian masters and Tibetan masters, who have actually applied the teaching of the Buddha within themselves, and then experienced the truth that the Buddha has taught, and become those of the beings, the masters on the path, and then those of the enlightened ones. So they become our examples for us, role models for us to tread the path that the Buddha has shown. And so the reason why it is possible for us to reach the Buddhahood and also become a Buddha Sangha, just as the Master Nagarjuna and so forth have reached, is because of the Tathagata Garbha that we have. And why they have reached the level that they have reached is because of this Tathagata Garbha as well. And so, and then with regard to the teaching of the Buddha, the teaching comprises basically of those of the truth of cessation and truth of the path. And so the highest cessation, the truth cessation, is that of enlightenment or of Buddhahood. And so when you see the possibility to attain that Buddhahood, you don't only think of yourself alone to reach that goal, but you think of the serving others, and therefore you engage in the practices of the bodhisattvas. And through the practice of the bodhisattva path, what you reach is that of the enlightenment. And once you become enlightened, then the enlightened qualities of the Buddhas emanate from there, or the enlightened activities of the Buddha emanate from there. And so in the case of Shakyamuni Buddha, who appeared over 2,500 years ago, he gave teaching to us, and he turned the 3 wheels of the turning of the wheels of the Dharma, and then the masters who have applied the teachings and attained those of the truth of path and cessation, and therefore given the teaching, such as the Fundamental Treatise on the Middle Way by Nagarjuna.
semachide sidadigi kolo parwa shijing chongo digi semachibetsu da kolo tamadigi semdiran shine ösawo sa disung shaji da kolo tamena do mangu yare dinanga da dozo gyulame shejazaran do dijibe ningbun do hosya da di semran shine ösawo disung mudo da 가서 그게 다는 묘한다 콜로 당부디 택맹도 저기 아래 만화도 넘기 빨리 슝도 제디 소체 콜로 당부나 날리기 아래 다데네 콜로 발바다 콜로 타만이 부디 렉자게 조르샤 자다 택진기 슝사디 숨기 아래 전에 다딘 만 저버장행기 단 제시 소 루주다 토미니 루주기 시징기 안다 콜로 파르바 시징기 슝 셈라 셈머치데 세 숭샤가 셈머치루디 당고 루주기 릭조나 다조 자시르나리아 셈머치베디 샌드위치 숭고도와 다스지 런시 왜서서한데 아니 고물루주기 취이다바 다 드즈나노스 아니 sim rangshi yuesa wa di jiksong yung yari. Daga nashingi, ene, tomi ki, da, kashugri, peke, da lama shune mendo, tomi ki, da, kanda zo, ene, chigi, peke, shung dusa di chamchu tenga saya, chambang gombe shung, jiduwa, da di nangi gyu lama saya di, dine da soki yari. Ene, tomi rangi, gyuru tongri, disu tenza yaduwa. 쟤네다 시진기 슝라에네 뭐든 동力림바체 뭐든 동力림바 동力소용도 자네 동시 최전기 처리야 되게 안다 셈라 세하게 다 최전 셈디 셈마치그레 셈 송샤 송샤는 신기 셈 쟤네 다 최전의 소용도 자네 아니 이 시진기 슝나리야 아니 제가 자서신 송샤 되기 다 시 풍금 기지기 체 람기 에너지 창조 소준을 써와 에니 지기 신주다 지가 어디서 제디 에니 송 프리진주 다래 프리진주 뜻을 제송 데뷔살이야 에니 돌로 써베 셔디디 동시 최전의 출을 송네 대탐적인 신주의道제 송도가 싸우다 뭐든 동력이 좀 어디 공부를 때 배도 못 하지는 버디 자본 공부 못 하잖아 뭐 송셰 어디 미친 버리 자 다한테 들이대 쉬야지 뭐든 동력이 좀做봐 대야게 공부를 주고 송 자시로 다 대마셔야지 나 자시로 용서로디 뒤주야 말라 나 자시로기 랍진이 써주고디 나 거라 마당 내 시주자네 냐를 랍진 써주고 시 랍진 써주고 되기 쉬고 랍진 쉬 랍진 잡게 버시 되네 랍진 니슈 접시 버시체 아다 랍진 숨부터 막 독스 방 독스 딩 샤바이나 찬스 롤이야 즉 차를 대고 좀 돼야지 저 내는 게 독스니 샤되게 나라에 배저 로드자네 된데스는 막 로하신 이 야고도 ene rajin chuzibtigi da rajin jabjebtigi da ranshim mebe chusubtigi ene pa gyaro pa gyeyundu ene rabjir hamodiri töngyore so da tertuksinda ene zaashushadan tyo
是我们刚引用般若经里面的第一个字，就是。
So, from the quotation that was quoted above from the sutra, the way it says the mind does not abide or have the mind in itself. The mind, the first mind refers to the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, and then when it says the mind is not within mind, that refers to the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, and then the next line which says the nature of mind is clear light refers to that of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. Which is to say that it shows that of that within the third turning of the wheel of Dharma there is this the essence of the Tathagata Sutra, which shows this the nature of the mind, the clear light nature of the mind. And so the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, of course, is considered as teaching of the Hinayana sutras, and which contain the Pali language. And then the second turning of the wheel teachings are those of the Mahayana sutras. And then with regards to the main commentators to the second and third turning of the wheels of Dharma, we have those of the masters Nagarjuna and Master Asanga. So Master Nagarjuna actually does is he comments on in this text of the fundamental stanzas on the middle way. Master Nagarjuna comments or makes explanation of the second turning of the wheel. In other words, the phrase where it says the mind does not abide in the mind, and then with regards to the clear-light nature of the mind, Master Nagarjuna has written the text such as the in praise of the sphere of reality, or Dharmadhatu, Dharmadhatu Stova. And then Master Asanga has, of course, received teachings from the 5 different texts from Maitreya, Lord Maitreya, and amongst these 5 different treatises of the Maitreya, there is the Mahayana Uttara Tantra. And the Mahayana Uttara Tantra also comments on the nature of the clear-light nature of the mind. And then Asanga also has written a commentary to it. And so with regard to the perfection of wisdom teachings of the Buddha, what they explicitly show or teach is that of the emptiness. And so it uses the mind and other phenomena which are called the 808 different bases. These include those of the basis, the path, the ground, the path, and the result. And so, with regard to the basis, in order to establish emptiness, these different bases are used, such as the aggregates, then the constituent factors, and the sources of consciousness, and so forth. And then, with regard to the path, we have the paths of the 10 perfections and so forth. And then with regard to the results, we have all the different qualities of the Buddha. And so these different subjects are used as the basis to establish emptiness and in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. And therefore, with regard to the explicit content of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, Master Nagarjuna mainly is the commentator, and with regard to the implicit content of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, the main commentator is that of Master Lord Maitreya. So Master Nagarjuna explains the explicit meaning of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras in his the fundamental stanzas on the middle way. And so this is the text that we are going to go through as introductory part of Buddhism. And so in terms of teaching, I'll teach the chapters, 3 chapters, the chapter 26, 18, and 24 in this sequence. And so this is easier for you to keep in mind, and it also is better for me to read the text in this order. And so first I will read the praise of the salutation, verse of salutation from the fundamental stanzas of the middle way.
산지 좀 된다리야 최준색이야래 자 최준자단데 에네 산지기 주 구이연데 주 다든지 구송투기 연된 셴 미주벌 조디 산지 좀 된데 숨비연데 샴제 뒤도가 조베 산지 만남지 담바스 마와 담바시리스 마위 깨쳐 지금 마와 담에 버리지 다 마와 담에 버티 지르네 아주 출루 저번에 대간 게 출루 변화 소셔디 상물로 소소스미 담바 데 메다 연대 간다 지금 졸라 팬베 직다 참제다 직대서 제여다 다가는 시기 캠페인인데 여대봐 다 누베인데 여대봐 다 시기를 받아 배는 산지 좀 nen데 아주 최배 지금 거네 샤베이나 저불이 디간기 뭐네 지다 힌두 담바즈이네다 지 다가는 시기에 배는 가서래 이슈 담바이네다 데저트에 지 산지 장성 그 주변에서 하나만 놓쳐야 돼. 와. 따오면 다 숨겨야 돼. 얘들 간다 밀이야. 그냥 누구 됐을래. Bhutanese.
So there are some Bhutanese people who have come here. Holiness greets them.
다 mentality 떠주고타네 mentality 연구야 봐. 산다 떠주고타네 다 사제 좀 된데 떠주디 다 담바션다 수치도 mentality 돼. 세비스타리. 사진의 인도 공부루기 랑게 담발이야. 대사자인도 자네 지 담배지 구배 통는 믿음을 도사로 된대면체 참지전 제사 된대면체 마 담배버리 신송도와 다와나 마원 담에바 이나 마원 담에바 임베 균제 가래 균제 강을 때네 마원 담에바 가져다 마원 담에바 차버렸으나 에네 땡진 잡은 중앙스 tendrel 세하기 떠줄티 낭배추 코나마도 신수 찍셔야 말해. 다 tendrel 세하디기 땡진 잡은 중앙 세하기 고아디 뜨네 주바 세하지. 다 뜨네 주단들 야 일본이체 good 제비치 뭐비쇼 가다 가이나야 랑기 good 깬라 뜨네 주바리 사게 good 깬라 뜨베 둘루 찍체 다 지금 뒤체 마세게 쇼 가다 가이나야 아니 라랑기 차셔를 뜨네 아니 주바리 쟤는 차셔를 떼네 중앙 차셔를 떼네 주바스 다 때는 중앙세하긴 중디 뒤제를 쳐를 잘해이나 규진리 중앙 셔쇼도가 규진리 깨버려봤다 다 뒤만세게 쳐를 잘해이나 규진리 깨버서 자토야 말이 가서 지산 규진이 뒤셔 말이 그래서 규진이 뒤 맞춰버려 어느 뒤 땡진 잡은 중앙 땡중 컨디션스라나 때는 중세하게 중에 된데 주에 돼 예배 돼 실전에 때는 예봐 때는 주봐 두기는 마등에 드무시게 쳐디디 예 땡중인비 금전디 디디 라랑 거 차셔를 되는 정도가 전에 단 니도가 저다 또스마 14로 식사로 스타바이나 때는 중에 그 땡중 dun제게 땡중 찍다 때는 딱에 땡중 찍 땡중 니숭이야래. 땡중 니숭대야 되게 쪼대 때는 따고들해. 사다 안데 때는 따고 숨기야래. 때는 따고 땡진 잡은 중앙서야. 아니 다 때는 따고 간다 규진 현了对等哎让主要的让王个主没头让来先把几个到底主等哎让先把几个忘给主等去，是真正印度个对呢主吧，对呢主吧印度个让忘给对面让忘个主吧没等去，是真正印度大这样的，搞不没把几没把写少给搞少给去送的，搞少给的但对这定中抗拉斯。다 규진의 때는 주면 땡중 강라스 개와요 각와요 아니 가서 균체에 채바다 균미체에 다 균기 딱과다 아니 좋은다 직타대신 지야 여된 얘기 최강시 경가로 속고 대는 나랑서 rollo 나와 능신지기 경가 rawang trubachi yor beslam na rawang tru yo maris 강다 깽가 라 속에 드베체 ngaran so ya nang denge di rang yinlu yibot bu jing zo lo shirgi ya 대가 ngone 가서 코랑 뭐변 내주에 터둘 뒤버려 함로 셔야 돼. 그래서 코레 내루 임버 좀 로로 셔야 돼. 내루수 주베 깽가 이미 짜주다나 니야요 말이. 내루수 주야나 내루 최근의 로티기 니고야지. 내루 최근의 로티기 많이 내가 올라 그 내루수 주베 따리. 그봐. 그래서 dinner 임버 인도 자네 땡중 강라스 깽가로 속아 패는 되겐지 여되겐지라 캐시 땡중 강라 캐시 깽가로 속아 년도 매버치는 여되겐디 대시를 주베 깽가래 말에 신의 자요나 니야요 말이지 된제 인도 자시를 본다봐 안다 다做식세면로 식세기 나와자고야 다 식세기 나려야 땡중 강라 깽가로 속고 여등에디 로 강라 때네 깽가디도 뭐 주버렸으나 파베 대권은 무슨도 통해 삼이 이시 미도베다 파베 이시기 싱물라 이시기 싱무 이시기 동니 무슨도 시디어와 동니 무슨도 시비 싱물라 동니도 매등에게 최디디 동니만 인게 최디디 견했어야 매봐 자 동원이 코나마도 내로 대코나니 짱보마도 신 가야다 세게 말아 그래서 디데인데 땡중 강라 가서 캐시 땡중 강라 가서 캐주 강라 여등에디 파베 냠샤 이시 대코나니 무슨도 시비 시물라 땡가로 소다다 차와레스 가레스라나 파베 냠샤 이시 대코나니 무슨도 시게 되게요 아래 땡가로 소버디 대코나 뭐주거리 딘제인데 대코나 뭐주신도 대코나 따리 이게바 나한테 디디 짜요나 니야메리 소때 숨겨래 대대비다 땡중게 대코나니 라왕게 거는 넘버 쟁에기 아니 방도 조베 산제디 마웨 계셔 마와 담바 마와 담에 버치레스 진짜게 담바들 차차로 송이 말이 당 가서 제디 뭐를 때네 뭐 싹도 죽었더라 깨웠어요 그래 그래 뭐파 돈정했더라 가봤어요 그래 진짜 인도 뭐를 때네 냠벨체게 갱가니 균을 때네 균 내등에 딱봐 균체베 차봐 균을 때네 차다니 유를 때는 롱니스 유현직는 들어 니네 현동조 스르자네 롱니 달라 때는 직타대 직도 도마 써야지 그 낮은 담에 전에 직이는 그 담에리 도마스는 낮에리 전에 와다 그 달라 때는 직타대스 대대비 단예배 취 디기디 나라서 로 나오는 신게 되게 한다 선로 선모치대 소원은 신게 갱가로 서고 디디 여리디 이내 여단디 민국왕게 여성신 마도 되게 은에 주 지요 말이 어떻게 숨겨래 다 디기 자시르 제자 땡중게 대권하니 땡중게 대권하니 정신도 예배 때뭐特别 공부 땡중 라왕 거는 넘버 정에게 마완 담에 봐 달라 차차로 송이 버리
And so, with regard to that salutation verse of the Mulamadimaka Karika, the text says, you who taught that whatever is dependently arisen and so forth, two stanzas in it. And so when Master Nagarjuna pays his homage to the Buddha, he doesn't praise the Buddha by way of recounting the Buddha's other qualities, such as the qualities of his body, speech, and mind. But what he actually praises the Buddha, how he praises the Buddha is by calling him the best of the teachers. And so the best of the teachers, meaning that the Buddha is someone who is peerless, who is a peerless teacher, a sublime being. Of course, generally speaking, we can say that all the different teachers or the founders of the different religious traditions have the different qualities, qualities of wisdom and power and so forth. But in the case from the point of view of from the point of view of Buddhism, we can say that these great teachers of the other traditions, such as Hinduism or Christianity and so forth, perhaps they may have been manifestations or emanations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, from judging by how greatly helpful they have been to the humanity through their teachings. But the difference between the other religious traditions and Buddhism is we can delineate that difference on the basis of the philosophical understanding. So with that, in that regard, the teaching of the Buddha in terms of philosophical understanding, philosophical view, is different from other religions. And therefore, from this point of view, Nagarjuna is praising the Buddha not by recounting those are the qualities of love, compassion, and so forth, but from the point of view of being that of a peerless teacher. So the reason why, the reason for the Buddha being a peerless teacher that Master Nagarjuna gives is that of the teaching of dependent origination. So this teaching or the dependent origination, the philosophical understanding of dependent origination of things, is unique to Buddhism, and it's not found in any other religious traditions. And then within the understanding of within this dependent origination or dependently related arising of things, we have two levels of dependence. One is that of dependence in terms of causality, dependence or origination, dependent origination through causes and conditions, and then so in this case we can talk about the causes being brought about through the results or the effects arising from causes and conditions. And then there's a second level of this dependence, which is that which can be applied to all phenomena, whether they are produced phenomena or unproduced phenomena. The way they are dependent is such that they are dependent on their parts. And so in dependence on the parts, there is the dependent origination of everything. And when you relate this dependence on the causality of things, or the things that are produced, that come about as a result of causes and conditions, then we have the dependence in terms of the causality. And then there's another level of understanding this dependence, which is that the uncaused phenomena are dependent in the sense that they are dependent on their parts. And And so, to go further, deeper into this, the understanding of the dependence, we have dependence, first of all, of causality, and then the dependence by way of designation. So designation, dependence in terms of designation. And so here, what the text, this salutation of the verses are mainly written from the point of view of this level of dependence, that things are only dependent and dependently designated. So, since things are dependent for their existence, what it shows is that if the things are dependently arisen, then they do not arise, or they do not have any existence from their own by their own power, by their own force, and so they are dependent. Their existence comes about in dependence on other factors and on others. And so the understanding of dependent origination, when you say that something is dependently arisen, then or established, then it shows that they do not they don't exist by way of their own power. And so, with this understanding, the 8 different alternatives, such as which are given in the text, in the salutation verse, where it says, "I prostrate to the perfect Buddha, the best of teachers, who taught that whatever is dependent arisen is unceasing, unborn," and so forth. And so, these are from the point of view of the things that come about, first of all, from the 8 different alternatives, such as not ceasing and so forth, are given from the point of view of dependence on causality, And so, in that case, now, when it's talking about the arising and or unceasing and unborn, this is from the point of view of the nature of things, the nature of produced phenomena, those things which are brought about by causes and conditions, and then not coming and going, or not annihilated and impermanent, are taught from the point of view of the continuity of things, that things cease to exist anymore, continue to exist anymore, or that they are permanent and so forth. And then that not coming and not going is taught from the point of view of the place or location, from going from a far place to from a near to a far place, or coming from a far place to a near, and so forth. And then that of the being without distinction or without identity is taught from the point of view of whether things can be talked about as being single or many. And so, in this way, although when we see these things arising and ceasing and so forth, what happens to our mind is that there is the appearance of cessation and of things, as if they happen without depending on other factors. But this is not the way they exist. The arising and cessation and so forth happen because of some other factors. And so the cessation and arisal and so forth appear, although they do appear as if they are the true nature of things, but they are not the final nature or the true ultimate nature of things, although they do appear as if they are such. And therefore, when the text says that they are without cessation and without birth and so forth, this is taught from the point of view of how it is seen by a wisdom which actually searches for the final reality of things. So that wisdom, when it looks at the produced things and checks for that of the final nature of the production and so forth, it does not find that final that production and so forth are the final nature of these produced produced phenomena, and therefore this the production and so forth, or cessation and so forth, are not in the true or the final nature of things. Because if they were the final nature of the produced phenomena, then they should be found by this wisdom, which actually searches for the final nature of things. And this wisdom, searching for the final nature of things, do not find these production and so forth in the ultimate sense. And therefore, this wisdom precisely refers to that of the uncontaminated wisdom of the Arya beings. So, from the perspective of the uncontaminated wisdom of the Arya beings, which sees emptiness only, there is no appearance of cessation and production and birth, annihilation, impermanence, permanence, and then coming and going, and distinction and identity. And therefore, this is taught from that point of view.
All right. That is
so Master Nagarjuna pays homage to the Buddha for being that kind of peerless or unmatched teacher, for showing this the final nature of the dependent originations. Now we move on to 26th chapter.
Letter tag and draw sene. That's on Saturday. Some day they chunk Tambo Sudane didn't do never with the ball, didn't go with the balls in the Tabashis Sondua. They that Shuru Shandazo any that when the Jitan cover would again the Yitigi any Gunjo, Gunjo Rani, Quever Yenza. Gujo Rangili, saw the Gujo Rangili, Ichana, any digital grace, and then the syntax standing to her. Diane, Changja Casa, Changja Harmy Butter. She Dagadan Shingi disarmament. Chiruba, the Jidako Duki Amare, Jidako Duki Amare, Yine Hazard that. The Haram looked to Ajre, Changzib Chashana, Da Shiri Givutigi, any so number, not so you but it, so Juim, but so Rangshin, but the Mashiba Wangita, Chungris, the Mishiba Wangi, Koa, Shigdua. That ready in it, Dana Shingi under the Jibube Shunale, Jidako Dugi Hamari, the day in the sun, a Pager, Mishiba Wangi, Tungi, so the Pager double leg. You said like a shooting Medaya. Men of unity shed, nice sympathy, chops this, chops up down. You talk a Jishan, Rosim Namdram Mushin. Judge, so the ships housing me. That dinner with the Jidoko Mendiba Yindu, any Tungi on the Adita, Mishiba Wanga race, a Chung Page doctor in Quasre. Taka the Nilu Mishiba race as Page Changjabe, Tandam about the Guzo de Basi Shektua. Page Jibube Page Hare. So that the Yindu, and that day Sanjebe, that the Cabra Chigdi, Didu long job. Taxi Daji, Mendiberata. Jinekobo Mendiberella, Taxi Daji, Mendibere. Changjambata, the Jibu Nika Logi, Jinekobo Mendibere, Taxi Dan Dukiari. Da Dutumeva, Dakpa, Ada Shell Tabamebe, Rawa. The Gunley, Takasu, Mushi Gunley, you think, Jibuimba. Chenny. Delicious. Other dinner made this an da de tendrel Shimarwa. You didn't turn it to a shimano. So the day is an called Tenjung turned the Chateau Yamare. So Tenjung said, Navajangare. So that is mentality. That is the Shiri. Sanjay the Chisan, you didn't go up on Minding the such wood. That Changjembe so jewelers in Shaggy, just all said that the Tapai Bari. Cheduzane, Takbe jewelers, Takbe given of Shaggy. A dear Mother Chason. Sanjay Shuni, the tendrel said, the tendrel Juni soon do. Tendrel Juni Sunduzane, tendril Dernalia, Diebe Dijums. Could you change your insa? David should be Jungiaris. Remado, humility of Maris. Diane, Julie gave a ready, but Chevobchigita gave a ready in it, Chevobodi, Takoyonsing Maris. Didn't you do? Casati. Midagwe gains. Do you call it? George Midagwas Google Mato, Changible Devonation, Georgia meeting so Takwachigi, Georgia Udingi, maybe should get to Maris. That's Sanjebe, Gigi, Gil, Yevachigi, Eugene Yevachigi, and the game Maris. Humility of Maris. Taganashiki, Jigden Kobabu, Loyo, Wonder Tony Gave Maris. For Aran, Eugene Yevans and the Chumaris. That Eugene dear, Cora Rang, Jebukiagi, Nubaji Mayati, Rani, Yuki Squares. So did they into Gulotoma meeting shame to her? So did they into that? Gaza. Midawa gains. Diane Midawa Yinzechigi. Any Jebu, but not so much. Mida, Eugene, you say, Jebu, you say, the Maris. Jebu number casual condition, T. Do to me, you cover the Machuaris. Did they do new gains? That's something they Dernalia, dear and Dinjum, Shenny. Kazurpugay, Loyo, Wonder Tony. Get about the Maris, humility Maris. Decay, say Ducore, Gigi, Rani Gigi, Gulatani, George decay, Medavacan. That issue would they come Maribes, any Dujikis, Dungen Dujikis. Taladan and Namshi, Shentayana Junitima Sunguari. So did they do the new vacancies? Dungen duching at the Dungen doing a Sujimava. Dungen medicine to Dungen dushes and Mishiba Wamshumaro. So did they do Mariba Wangi, Dungen dushivin, Dushumbre, study some.
So in the first verse of the 26th chapter, the analysis of 12 links of existence, it says, obscured by ignorance and for the sake of rebirth, we create the three kinds of actions. And so here, first of all, in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths. And so the Four Noble Truths are so this from the point of view of the theistic religions as well. What they say is that everything is created by God, and therefore the followers also seek to seek happiness or their goal or salvation, so forth, by submitting themselves totally to their Creator God. Whereas within the non-theistic religions, there is the Samkhya school of classical Hindu tradition, which do not assert a creator God. And so, according to them, also the suffering that we undergo, that we experience, is said to be because of not knowing the nature of that primal factor. They say the primal factor, and because of that ignorance, we cause suffering. Whereas they still say that this person, the conscious self, is because it's ignorant about the true nature of the primal factor, it causes suffering for the person. And so there is some kind of a teaching on that suffering comes from ignorance, from that. According to them, from the point of view of Buddhism. And similarly, in the case of Jainism, they say that because we are ignorant about the self, therefore we cause the suffering. And so again, here also there's an implication of ignorance giving rise to that of suffering. And so both of these traditions, Samkhya and Jainism, while they do not assert that of a creator God, they still do assert some kind of a permanent unitary called autonomous self of a person. And therefore, although I do not know much about their philosophy, as I usually say that my understanding and knowledge of these traditions are rather very limited, as we say, the saying goes, "Jack of all trades and master of none." So I'm always somebody like that. And so, with regard to the knowledge of these, the philosophical interpretations or philosophical understanding of these different traditions, but according to Buddhism, what we say is that there is no, on the one hand, there is no creator God, who is the doer of everything, and on the other hand, we also say that there is no permanent single autonomous self which enjoys or experiences pain and pleasure. And so whereas those of the Samkhya and Jainism, they do assert such a permanent self. The Buddhism says that everything is come about in connection through causes and conditions, through independence on other factors. And so this teaching on dependence or dependent origination is not something that the Samkhya and the Jains are able to explain, but this is unique to Buddhism. And now, in the teaching of the Buddha, with regard to the dependent origination, the Buddha says, because this exists, that arises. So what this shows is that things have causes and conditions for them to arise. And therefore, things cannot, if something arises, it shows that it has causes and conditions, and that it cannot arise without those causes and conditions. And therefore, this shows, according to the Sangha, what is known as the unwavering condition. So if something arises because of causes and conditions, you cannot have a permanent doer of it, a creator of it, which is permanent. And therefore, this shows that since things change, the change itself is brought about through the causes and conditions. Because there are causes and conditions, therefore change is possible. And therefore, things cannot be permanent, and that they must arise in dependence on their individual causes and conditions. And so this shows that of the impermanent condition, that things change because of causes and conditions, and that they cannot arise without those causes and conditions, and they cannot arise from some permanent, unchanging causes and conditions. And then even though things do arise in dependence on causes and conditions, and every thing cannot give rise to everything else. Once you have some effect or a result, that result must have a cause which is concordant to it. And so a result or an effect arises in dependence on a concordant condition. And therefore, this shows that of what is known as the potential condition. And so, in this way, the Buddha also, so we have these three conditions, which are those of the unwavering, the condition, the impermanent condition, and the potential condition. And then the Buddha also, with regard to that of the impermanent condition, the Buddha also mentions in the same sutra, where it says there, because this exists, that arises. He also says, because this arises, that arises. And this shows that of the impermanent condition. And then because of the condition of ignorance, the karma arises. And therefore it shows that although we do not, that all the suffering arises through causes and conditions, so which is something anybody doesn't want, but because of ignorance we cause the actions.